we're celebrating AMP's 175th year. Our purpose is helping people create their tomorrow, a common goal and pursuit we have shared for the last 175 years. To mark the occasion, we're speaking to some of the people and business partners that have helped make all of this possible.
Hi, I'm Sharon Callister and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Mission Australia. Well, incredible as it sounds, we have been associated with AMP since 1862. That is phenomenal when you think about it. But it all started with an AMP employee, Benjamin Short, who was an insurance agent. He was also a very strong Christian and philanthropist. And he saw that there was a need in society, not just for life insurance, but also philanthropy to help people who were basically living with incredible disadvantage. So people who were homeless or at risk of homelessness. And it's incredible to think now, today, if we had our time, how many people do we see with that kind of vision? I'd have to say it's very few, but Benjamin Short was absolutely outstanding. It's a really great story to celebrate, and I think it's been like 7 generations since then. We have had a long-term relationship with AMP. We have a founding purpose, and we are very focused as a Christian organisation on meeting human need and helping end homelessness and communities to thrive. And AMP is always looking for tomorrow and making tomorrow even better. So there's a lot of synergies. Again, we may do things slightly differently and have different focuses, but we're so intertwined in terms of our vision and our hope for the future.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Bryony Barclay Ridge, and I'm AMP Super's General Manager, Workplace Solutions. And it's my very great privilege to welcome you to your 2025 Superannuation Annual Members Meeting. Firstly, we would like to begin by paying our respect to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of this land, and recognise all First Nations peoples from the many lands from which you, our members, join us today. We acknowledge the elders past and present and emerging. In addition, we recognise and welcome the diverse communities that now call this land home. Last year, we celebrated 175 years since AMP first began, and ours is a business with a rich history and contribution to Australian society that I have great pride in. In fact, this lapel pin that I'm wearing today is the amicus, which is the embodiment of our Latin motto adopted by AMP of amicus certis in reinserta, or a sure friend in uncertain times. Our organisational purpose today of helping people create their tomorrow reflects that heritage of putting our customers first and making it as simple as possible for them to take control and achieve their goals. Now, if you're interested in our history, you may want to check out the Australian National University's online exhibition featuring 175 years of AMP using the link you can see on screen now. Today you'll be hearing from Tony Brain, Chair of AMP Superannuation Trustee Board, Anna Shelley, Chief Investment Officer, Shane Oliver, our Chief Economist, Melinda Howes, Group Executive, Superannuation and Investments, and Edwina Maloney, Group Executive Platforms. Directors of the Trustee Board, Kerry Howard, Catherine McDowell, Paul Scully, Christopher Hall, Tricia Klinger and Andrew Byrne are also here with us today, along with our auditor Ernst & Young, represented by Marie Polisco. Additionally, we have the Superannuation Trustee Executive Anne Coyne and Chief Risk Officer Julia Pryor in attendance. Now, during the course of our conversation today, we'll be talking to our 2 funds, AMP Super, which houses our Signature Super offer, and our Wealth Personal Superannuation and Pension Fund, within which our North platform resides. Thank you to those of you who have taken the time to pre-submit questions. We've listened to your feedback, and there are some common themes highlighting what is most of interest and importance to you and which we'll address. Questions around our investment strategy and approach, including asset allocation, exposure to growth, and performance were most popular with members this year, together with several questions raised around fees, environmental, social and governance, or ESG, and retirement. You can also submit a question during our meeting, and you can do that using the Q&A function, which you'll find at the bottom of the webcast panel. These will be answered by each of the speakers you'll hear from today. However, we are unable to answer questions of a personal nature, and for that reason, you'll be contacted by our member engagement team, who can help guide you per your individual circumstances. I'll now hand you over to Tony Brain. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Bryony, and a very warm welcome to our members who I'm delighted to report have benefited from particularly strong investment returns over this past year. This meeting is your opportunity to hear from those responsible for looking after your superannuation balances, and we've based the content of our presentations on what we know is most important to you, both from the questions you're asking our service teams and the topics you've raised ahead of today's meeting. As such, we want to make sure we focus on the contemporary changes to each fund and the areas of interest that you've emphasised to us during the course of 2024. We also look forward to answering any further questions you have later in the meeting, and as always, there'll be an opportunity to provide feedback at the end of the meeting, which we would welcome. Please also note that the annual reports for each of our AMP Super and Wealth funds are available online with detailed information that you might find of interest. An important message you'll be hearing throughout today's meeting is the significance of taking a long-term view in the context of building superannuation retirement savings. This long-term perspective is aimed at developing retirement savings over a member's working life and beyond. And that is certainly the lens through which Anna and her team manage your investments. After my introduction, Anna will talk about our investment performance over the past year, the importance of diversification, and the key drivers for the strong returns that have been delivered for members. That will be followed by Shane, who will take you through a forward look at the current macroeconomic outlook for both funds. And this view is an important consideration in how we invest your savings. Following Shane's presentation, Melinda and Edwina will each take you through some of the key highlights for the respective funds and what that means for members looking forward to the coming months. One of the things I'm most excited about is all the great capability we've built to help give you greater financial confidence and security when planning for the long road ahead, which is why retirement continues to be a major focus for us. One example of this is our market-leading MyNorth Lifetime Retirement Income Solution. It's available through advisors to members of our Wealth Fund, and Edwina will speak to this later today. We're also focused on delivering an innovative pension solution with similar outcomes for members of our AMP Super Fund, and this will be over the next 12 months. And Melinda will touch on that during this meeting. As trustee, we understand the importance of our role as custodians of the wealth and retirement savings of Australians, and the role we can play in improving the financial health and well-being of members, as well as those in the broader community. An illustration of this is over the past year, AMP has paid $2.2 billion in pension payments to Australians to help them in retirement, and additionally we've supported more than 4,800 members in accessing $62.5 million in superannuation on compassionate or hardship grounds. As mentioned earlier by Bryony, this is our 175th year history, and it's continuing to contribute to the community. It's at the core of what AMP does. And giving back to those in need is a big part of our purpose, reflected in support we provide to our members and the wider community. Since 1992, the AMP Foundation has positively impacted the lives of thousands of Australians, investing $111.3 million into the Australian community to help organisations and individuals bring about positive change. Thanks to funding support from the AMP Foundation, we've also teamed up with the Good Shepherd organisation to create a program for members who we have identified as potentially vulnerable or in financial hardship and who may benefit from receiving financial counselling, emergency food relief or support. As trustee, we play a critical role as an independent custodian of your superannuation funds, with a fiduciary duty to put members' interests first and help our members live their best life in the retirement. On the screen you can see we have 4 strategic priorities for our funds, and I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about each. Our first strategic priority is to drive strong investment outcomes and sustainable long-term returns for members. This is at the core of what we do. And members of the AMP Superannuation Fund saw returns in excess of 11% for the year ended 30th of June 2024, including returns of 11.14% for members of our AMP MySuper 1970 Superannuation Fund option, which is the largest by funds under management. That strong performance is a testament to Anna and her highly capable investment management team. And those strong returns have continued through to the end of December 2024, with annual returns of 15% or higher for 3 of our largest member cohorts across the AMP MySuper 1990s, 1980s and 1970s superannuation fund options. Our second priority is to deliver exceptional member offers through digital, data and emerging technologies, and 2024 has been an exciting year for that. With these focus on improvements to member servicing, we have helped our members increase their retirement income, as well as engage better with us in getting help, guidance and advice. A key priority was delivering enhanced insurance outcomes, and I'm really pleased to report that we have made great progress following the appointment of TAL as our new default insurance provider. We're already beginning to see green shoots with a better claims experience for our members, and Melinda will provide a little bit more detail on this during her presentation. Melinda will also take you through our new digital advice offering, the first of its kind in the Australian market, underlining our commitment to help more of our members get the most out of their super and ensure a smooth financial transition into retirement. Our third priority is ensuring we have a leading risk culture and appropriate oversight frameworks in place, underpinned by effective and autonomous trustee governance, as well as safeguards against cybercrime. Protecting member data and personal information is another key part of how we manage risk. And with this in mind, we continue to review and enhance our controls to help guard member accounts against emerging forms of fraudulent activity. In 2024, this included the introduction of multi-factor authentication when performing online transactions. Our members can rest assured their security is our utmost priority. Our fourth strategic priority is to drive sustainable scale benefits, growing our funds in a targeted way that continues to deliver strongly against peers and industry benchmarks. And I'm confident that our outstanding investment returns, combined with our low and competitive fees and high quality service and product offerings, put us in a great position to service our existing members well and provide the foundations for a growing member base. Any growth that we achieve must also be in line with continuing to deliver on our environmental sustainability commitments. It's our responsibility to consider economic, social and environmental risks and opportunities in our investment program. And in conjunction with Anna's investment team, our North team have introduced further enhancements in this regard. Edwina will talk through some of those recent additions to our platform investment portfolios, as well as how they continue to evolve to provide great diversification and tailored solutions for our advised members. Now, before I hand over to Anna, I'd like to take this opportunity to play a short video. And this was filmed in recognition of AMP's 175-year history with some of our longest-standing employers who use AMP Super for their employees. AMP currently supports over 23,000 employers nationwide, many of whom we've had decades-long relationships with. Here's that short video.
Paul Hurley, Brown Hurley Group. We are Australia's probably largest Kenworth and DAF dealer.
I'm Melanie Cooper. I'm Chair of Cooper's Brewery. So Cooper's has had a long-standing relationship with AMP for over 40 years.
Craig Davison, CEO of Australia and New Zealand for DB Schenker. DB Schenker is a leading global logistics player, both in international and domestic freight.
AMP has provided exceptional service. They provide financial wellness seminars.
So we've been AMP business partners, I guess, since 1951.
We've been working with AMP for almost 30 years. The important part of working with AMP is we're setting our employees' future up.
And their service has always been there for what we require as a corporate customer. And I guess that's why we've been customers now for nearly 70 years. Yeah.
They have a first home super saver scheme, so they've covered all ages of our employees, and I think they've done a fabulous job.
Take the time to celebrate the milestone with both your customers and your staff, and I hope you have a great time this year.
Thank you for everything you've done for Coopers, and congratulations to the employees as well.
It's good to look back on these milestones, and there's certainly things that should be celebrated within the organisation. So congratulations to AMP and the organisation.
Thank you, and I'll now hand to AMP's CEO, Anna Shelley, to take you through our strong investment performance for the 2024 calendar year. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Tony. So my name is Anna Shelley. As your Chief Investment Officer, I'm going to take you through our long-term investment strategy for the AMP Super Fund and how we're maximising your fund's performance. We're going to cover three key areas today. Firstly, how the MySuper Life Stages works. Secondly, we'll cover our investment performance and the importance of sustainable returns over the long term. And finally, our long-term investment strategy, including our dynamic asset allocation process. So let's have a closer look at how Life Stages works. Our MySuper Life Stages approach ensures your super is automatically and progressively moved into less risky investment portfolios as you get closer to retirement. On the slide here, you can see how Ben's investment mix changes as he gets older. When Ben turns 64, there's a greater allocation to defensive assets as he approaches retirement. Now that means he'll have a lower exposure to more risky assets, such as international equities, than someone who's in their 30s. This approach provides added protection from market downturns and provides security and peace of mind for our older members. It also ensures that younger members with a longer investment horizon have maximum exposure to growth, meaning they can withstand market shocks while their balances grow substantially over time. So here you can see on screen the rolling annual returns for the MySuper 1970s option. That's our largest by funds under management. The chart shows how it's performed against the industry fund median on a rolling one-year return basis, and that's after all investment fees and taxes. Now let's have a look at the past year's investment performance. At last year's meeting, we spoke about the importance of staying focused on the road ahead and ensuring that your super balance can continue to perform and grow substantially over time. Now that means tuning out from the market noise. And as you'll hear from Shane, whilst it can be worrying, short-term volatility in investment returns is to be expected. Now on this next slide, you can see how the 1970s MySuper option has performed both in the last financial year and in every year since its inception. Our team is really pleased to have again delivered particularly strong returns for our superannuation members, helping you retire with greater financial confidence. The quality of these returns reflects strategic allocation to asset classes that performed well during the year, like equities and credit. In addition, we were overweight stocks which performed strongly, such as US equities, which really benefited from a strong surge in AI adoption. We've also been increasing our exposure to private debt and diversified credit, which have delivered high and consistent returns. Our previous relatively low allocation to direct property has allowed us to increase this exposure this year by buying from motivated sellers at deep discounts. Now, thanks to our strategic investments and that focus on growth, we've achieved a return in excess of 11% for members of our MySuper 1970s, 1980s and 1990s options for the 2024 financial year, which were among some of the highest returns in the market. That strong performance continued through to the end of the 2024 calendar year, with AMP Super delivering returns of 15% or higher for members in our MySuper 1970s, 1980s and 1990s investment options, which was an exceptional result. Together, these three options represent three of our largest member groups, and they ensured that our funds were in a strong position heading into 2025. Similarly, the 1960s and 1950s funds performed really well, returning 11.5% and 9.8% over the 2024 calendar year. Now, we also run a number of strategies for the Wealth Fund, giving you broad choice based on individual member preferences and investments based on risk profiles. If you're in the Wealth Fund, then we'd advise you to speak to your advisor to learn more about how your fund performed this year. So, looking ahead, all our funds are well placed to maintain their positive performance momentum and continue to deliver investment excellence for all our super members. I'd like to now turn to some of the key investment themes that we saw play out over the last 12 months. Economic growth in Australia remained positive at around 1.1%, despite weaker economic growth than the long-term average. That was helped by strong population growth and stronger than expected growth in public spending. This meant some positive momentum for Australian shares, which did well in anticipation of stronger profits and rate cuts ahead. There were a few bumps along the way for share markets. Notably, we had an inflation scare in April and then a growth scare into August, but they were relatively minor, meaning that 2024 proved to be another strong year for diversified investors. The AMP MySuper Life Stage options were well positioned to benefit from all of these market dynamics. While returns from share markets were a key driver, our diversified investment strategy meant many different asset classes and asset types within the portfolio also contributed to this strong result, including private debt and credit. Being agile in this environment is critical, and we adopt a dynamic asset allocation process across the portfolio to take advantage of mispricing and any short-term volatility. We have maintained liquidity in our portfolios to ensure that they're well placed to continue to deliver sustainable returns over the long term. Which brings me then to our long-term investment strategy. As an investment management team, we have a responsibility on behalf of our members to regularly review our asset mix and the long-term outlook for different asset classes, meaning that we're evolving the portfolio and shifting weightings towards where we see opportunity for our members. This aligns with our investment philosophy, which is to be curious, disciplined, and to identify shifts in markets to help ensure that we're continuing to deliver sustainable returns for our members into the long term. Diversification is, of course, also core to our investment thinking and approach. We invest your savings across a broad range of assets diversified by type and region, with the idea being that there is always some part of the portfolio that's delivering growth even in downturns. So turning to our dynamic asset allocation program. The dynamic asset allocation program is designed to provide diversification and upside to our members by investing in tradable assets and commodities, including equity and bond futures, currencies, and traditional commodities like gold, copper, and oil. Additionally, it's implemented through regulated and liquid financial instruments that provide all the customary protections to investors. After analysis and successful testing of our trading model, we collectively determined there was opportunity to enhance the returns for our members by taking a small, tightly managed trading position in Bitcoin futures through our fund's dynamic asset allocation program. Our holding, initiated in May last year, is a very small position, but it has already contributed positively to the portfolio. It's just 0.05% of our total funds under management, a carefully managed exposure to what is widely considered an emerging asset class. At AMP, our goal is to help you achieve the retirement lifestyle you desire. We're committed to managing your investments prudently, diversifying across various asset classes, and seizing emerging opportunities to sustain long-term value for you. Importantly, our careful selection of assets and emphasis on equities have played a significant role in such positive results for members this year. So thank you for entrusting us with your superannuation. The team and I are very proud of the results that the fund delivered to members in 2024. We're committed to delivering strong and sustainable long-term returns, and we look forward to continuing to support your financial journey. And I'll now hand over to our Chief Economist, Shane Oliver.
Thank you, Anna, and I hope you're all well. As we know, we are in a very uncertain world to some degree, particularly given what's happening in the US with the change of government. So I'll talk about some of those issues in my presentation. But to start with, you can probably see the disclaimer up there that says a whole bunch of things that it's always worth remembering that past performance is not a perfect guide to future performance, and also that I can only provide general information. I can't provide advice specific to your circumstances. One thing we have seen quite clearly the last 2 years have seen pretty good returns for investment funds, and of course Tony and Anna have already highlighted that in relation to the AMP funds. Bunch of factors driving that that Anna has covered, but you can see on the left-hand side of the chart there that a lot of the strong performance that you've seen across superannuation funds generally has come from strong gains in particularly global shares, to a lesser degree Australian shares, and some of those big inflation concerns of 2022 have abated. So the chart on the left there shows returns in 2023 in red, 2024 in green, and the blue is the 5-year average. And through last year, those returns were well above average. And so that has particularly helped superannuation funds, as you can see in the chart on the right, where you've seen again above average returns. So if we just move on, how do we see the outlook for the future? Because as I've just said, past performance is no guarantee to the future. As to what we might see. We do think that global growth will slow down a little bit, but still be reasonable. I know many of you may be concerned about what's happening in the US and how that affects things, and I'll come on to that. We do see growth in Australia, in fact, picking up a little bit to around 2% by year end, after about 1% through 2024. President Trump's trade war is obviously the main downside risk. Inflation, we think, will probably fall further. There's a lot of concern there that Trump's tariffs will add to inflation. Yes, that's certainly a risk in the US, but in other parts of the world, we see inflation continuing to fall. And we also see, if those tariffs are going to have a big impact, it's probably more of a downward threat to economic growth, which will pull inflation down ultimately. But the bottom line is this will probably underpin further central bank interest rate cuts. And we've started now to see that in Australia. For share markets, we have had some very good gains over the last couple of years, double-digit gains. We do expect that that will slow down this year, and we're probably going to see more volatility along the way. And in fact, we've seen a bit of that just in the last couple of days. What to keep an eye on? Obviously, Donald Trump's trade war and what Donald Trump is doing is high on the list there. Interest rates, business conditions, and also China. There's a good chance that as China sees more tariffs imposed on its exports to the US, that it will stimulate its economy to provide support. One thing I would say that will help provide support for share markets this year, despite that volatility, is the further declines in interest rates that we expect. So just moving on to some of those indicators, there's business surveys that they come out every month around the world. They're sometimes referred to as PMIs, surveys of purchasing managers, not just in Australia but globally. So you can see on the left-hand side chart there, those surveys, they go back to 2005. You can see the big slumps in the GFC and around the time of the pandemic. The red line is for services and the blue line is for manufacturing. Manufacturing in recent times has actually been quite soft globally and in Australia, services have been a bit stronger. Now, recently, some of those indicators regarding services have started to slow down. And the interesting thing we're also starting to see is that some of that weakness is actually emanating from the US. If you break it down by country, we're actually starting to see some pickup in Europe and Japan and even Australia to some degree, whereas in the US it's been deteriorating as a result of the uncertainty that Donald Trump is causing. But at present, those indicators are not in recessionary levels. They may get there, certainly worth keeping an eye on. That's something we're watching closely, but we're not there yet. Just inflation. This is where the news is really good. It's been the big concern for markets over the last couple of years, but what you see in that chart there is a clear downtrend. And I've shown here what you call global core inflation. It excludes the impact of food and energy prices in most of those countries. And in Australia, we use a thing called the trim mean, which also excludes very volatile items from the inflation numbers. It doesn't mean that inflation didn't go up in 2022. It certainly did, as you can see in the chart there. And you also get the same pattern now with prices coming down, but because in Australia we've got those energy rebates feeding through, that's been stripped out of those numbers to get a guide to the underlying picture. What you can see there is that for the US, Canada, Australia, Europe and the UK, the trend has been down. Australia is no different to other countries. That's why we're now starting to see interest rate cuts in Australia, and we think that will go further. This chart shows here interest rates, big rises in 2022. To combat higher inflation. That has now worked. Central banks are cutting, and the Reserve Bank has joined in that last week. Yes, they're cautious, as are other central banks, but we do think we'll see a couple more rate cuts in Australia out of the RBA and one more early next year. So that's good news if you've got a mortgage, maybe not so good news if you're relying on bank deposits for income. So you've got to have a well-diversified source of income, I think. Tariffs. You know, this is the elephant in the room, the big thing that everyone's worried about. Donald Trump took over in January. We've seen a plethora of announcements on a daily basis on all sorts of things, and everyone seems to be glued to clips of what he's saying most recently. And of course, there's some good news in there. If you're an economic rationalist like me, someone who wants to see sensible economic policies, there are some sensible things in there. You know, removing some of the regulations, you know, making sure that taxes aren't too high, that government is not too onerous. To some degree, that makes sense, and hopefully that ultimately dominates. But of course, we are concerned about tariffs that will impact global growth. The way the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, run by the guy in the picture there, is running things is a bit concerning because it's creating this daily uncertainty about what they may do. And those things coming together are causing uncertainty, and you can see that in the US, and that is a short-term threat to markets. I've shown in the chart there the level of average tariffs in the US going back to 1900, and you can see a big downtrend. You can see the big surge in tariffs in the 1930s called Smoot-Hawley that contributed to the Great Depression, and now we're starting to see something similar. And of course, Donald Trump has told us that those tariffs on Mexico and Canada are set to go ahead. Maybe tomorrow morning they won't go ahead. You never know with Donald Trump. But it is causing a lot of uncertainty, and the tariffs on China have already been ramped up and ramped up again, and there's a lot more to go. It's a bit unclear as to where that's all going to end up. I think ultimately Donald Trump does focus on share markets. If they fall too much, he will get concerned, as he did in 2018, and pull back a bit. So far, US shares are down about 4.5%. Similar story for Australian shares. Risk is they can go further in the short term, but I think ultimately he will pull back if there's too much of a backlash against his policies, as we saw in his first term. So that's why we're optimistic on a 12-month basis, but if you look in the next few months, you could see quite a bit of volatility coming through. Australian home prices, everyone worries about this one. It's a big one. Australian home prices recently had a bit of a dip, only if you're in Hobart, Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney, and to a lesser degree Darwin. Other cities have been booming. If you're in Adelaide, Perth and Brisbane, you've been going through a boom. But as I said, if you put them together, recently we've seen a little bit of a dip, but the numbers that came out for February are showing a rise again. So what's happening here, I think, is that housing is caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, you've got the negative force of, well, I won't get into positives or negatives, you've got this source of support for house prices, which is a shortage, a chronic shortage of housing in Australia that is pushing them up over time. Basically, are not enough homes for a number of people in Australia. We think there's a shortage of about 200,000 dwellings. So that gives us that upwards pressure. On the other hand, until recently, we were seeing high rates and still are seeing high rates, and that was starting to push them down a little bit. Now interest rates are starting to fall again, and it suggests to us that we're probably going to start to see another upswing in average property prices around Australia, particularly in places like Melbourne, Hobart, Canberra, and to a lesser degree Sydney, which have been weak lately, whereas you're probably still going to see some weakness in the boom time cities of Adelaide, Perth and Brisbane. So lots of issues around housing. Poor affordability, I think, is the biggest problem for the Australian housing market, and I'm always hopeful for elections that might be resolved, but unfortunately I still live in hope, and that issue keeps dragging on. I might just jump over the next couple of slides. We can talk a bit more about housing if we want to in the Q&A. Just in terms of major asset classes, we see cash providing okay returns, but they're going to slow down as the Reserve Bank starts to cut. Government bonds, fixed interest, probably okay around running yields, maybe a little bit more. Shares, as I mentioned, a little bit more constrained than over the last couple of years. Still okay, but just expect a lot more volatility than we saw last year. Residential property starting to tick up again after a bit of a downswing on a nationwide average basis. Commercial property is looking a little bit healthier. That big shift to work from home through the pandemic has reversed to some degree, and we've been working through the vacancies, consequently seeing commercial property start to pick up again. And the Aussie dollar, I think, is going to remain fairly turbulent given all these issues around tariffs. Now, a couple of points I want to reiterate, and we often do this, just to point out that superannuation should be seen as a long-term investment. There's a bunch of themes there that we look at which play out over the long term, such as globalisation, which looks to be rolling over now with all these tariffs. Decarbonisation remains a big factor. There's less workers out there versus consumers. As my generation, the baby boomers, start to retire, that's a constraint. We've also got tech and AI, which are very positive from a long-term perspective. So some conflicting forces in there. But I think one of the key things to note is that it's very hard to time markets in the short term. And this chart emphasises that. Look at the wiggles in the Aussie share market on a rolling one-year basis, all over the place. Notwithstanding, you can go through a couple of good years, but historically very, very volatile. Try and focus on the long term. Try and keep your superannuation as stable as possible and not switch around too much from the high-risk options to the low-risk options. Finally, I just want to point out that, yes, we have seen some positive returns over the last year or so, but just expect that we will start to see a bit more volatility, and we're starting to see a bit more of that this year, even though we still think returns will be reasonably good. So on that note, I will hand over to Melinda. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. It's AMP's 175th birthday. Let's take a moment to reflect on this organisation's continuous history over nearly 2 centuries of helping Australians build, invest and grow their wealth. Your AMP Super team proudly carries on that legacy today, standing on the shoulders of those who've come before us to help you achieve your wealth goals. At AMP Super, we're focused on delivering to you in the moments that matter. And that's for you and all of our members. Anna's already talked about our investment performance, and pleasingly, all of our MySuper default funds once again passed APRA's annual performance test. Those returns are a testament to Anna and her highly capable AMP investments team. I'm excited that we've again been independently recognised with several awards for our retirement and superannuation products and services in 2024. In particular, independent research house Super Ratings has recognised AMP Super products with their highest platinum rating for another year, and that was awarded to our corporate, MySuper and pension offerings. We were one of Australia's top 10 funds in 8 of 11 categories that Super Ratings rates. And that makes 8 years in a row that Super Ratings has awarded us platinum performance from 2017 right through to 2024. We were also honoured to receive the Sustainable Recognition Award, and that's given to Australian superannuation funds that have demonstrated a commitment to sustainability throughout their investment practices, internal behaviours and member interactions. It's a recognition of all the hard work our team has done in recent years to improve our environmental and sustainability scores against industry benchmarks. In addition, we received some excellent recognition from independent market research and consultancy firm Core Data in July last year. 9 in 10 AMP Super members said they were satisfied with communications from their fund, according to that Core Data research, and that was the highest score of any super fund. We were also ranked by Core Data in the top 5 most trusted super funds in Australia. With the rising cost of living, many of our members are worried about having enough for their retirement. That's why we're continuing to ensure our fees are low and competitive for you. AMP Super's total administration and investment fees remain lower than the average for all industry super funds and also lower than the average for all super funds. These relatively low fees magnify into significant benefits over the long term. When we're running the AMP Super Fund, we're focused on 4 key priority areas that we understand are the most important to you. And these are exceptional service, quality insurance cover, innovation, and retirement. So first, delivering exceptional service to you. Our service to our members is one area where we believe we stand head and shoulders above other super funds. We've invested in significant technological innovation to provide new and better member services behind the scenes, including rolling out an AI assistant for our call centre agents. And we'll be launching a range of additional services for you this year. Our team's working hard to give you a helping hand, having received and processed more than 5.4 million member transactions over the last year. We've lifted response times in our contact centre, which means we're now picking up your calls within 70 seconds on average. And that means our teams right across the country answer your calls faster and you're not left hanging in a queue waiting to be served. Our client services team, in fact, helped process 3,600 insurance claims over the year, supporting members and their families when they're at their most vulnerable. We're always looking for more ways to improve our member services and outcomes to ensure that you can obtain help when you need it most. Over the past year, we've supported more than 490,000 customers with their super and banking through MyAMP online services, helping take more than 728,000 calls from members about their super, banking or their investment needs. We've also been simplifying the ways we help you, ensuring you have easy access to advice and support. Now, for many years, AMP Super has had an intra-fund advice service. What does that mean? Well, it's simply advice about your super, which is available to you at no extra cost and provided by in-house advisors who can talk to you over the phone. In the past 12 months, our intra-fund advice team supported more than 3,100 members, and you loved the service. More than 9 in 10 members said they felt more informed and confident about their super or retirement after getting advice. The majority of members rated the experience as good or great, and more than 9 in 10 would recommend the service to family and friends. We also know the importance of giving you high quality, flexible insurance cover, and that's our second key focus area. During 2024, as Tony mentioned, TAL, one of Australia's leading insurers, was appointed as AMP Super's new default insurer for death and total and permanent disablement cover, and also for income protection insurance if you have that sort of cover. Now, we recognise there was some disruption during the transition over to TAL, and we want to really thank you again for your patience and understanding through that transition. But this change has allowed AMP Super to deliver significant premium reductions for the majority of members, and you're now also benefiting from TAL's strong track record of paying claims and providing excellent customer service. You now have access to TAL's market-leading health and wellbeing program. Also, very excitingly, we're progressively now rolling out a full digital insurance experience for you, and that's accessible via MyAMP on the portal and the app. This will include underwriting, disability claims, all other insurance services, and you can also track the status of your service requests online. Throughout our 175-year history, AMP's been an innovator, and innovation is our third key focus area. Now, we've been looking at all the different ways you interact with us and working out how we can deliver fresh new solutions to really set us apart. We also have a job to do to help younger Australians who are increasingly facing cost of living pressures and housing unaffordability. How can we make it easier for them to engage with their super, build their financial confidence and set them on the right path for long-term financial security? That's why we're so excited to launch a new digital advice service, available online or via the app in My AMP. We had 3 very clear priorities in designing and building that solution, which I'm confident we've achieved. The first was to make it extremely simple and easy to use, with clear and achievable outcomes and recommendations. So simplicity and clarity to help build your confidence. The second was to ensure that it's affordable and accessible. You won't pay any extra fees for this service and it's accessible 24/7. And the third was ensuring that it links very closely with human support so that all members can discuss their outcomes with one of our qualified advisors should you wish to. We've just launched the first of the services on this. It's our digital retirement health check, and you can access that right now through the My AMP portal online. This can help you feel more confident about your future in 4 easy steps and helps you see how you're tracking for your retirement compared to peers of the same age. Now, we'll include a link at the end of this meeting for where you can access that service, but you can also just jump on the My AMP portal online, and it's coming on the app. That'll be ready on the My AMP app later this month. We'll be progressively adding more services, including digital retirement planning advice, investment option advice, and others, so stay tuned. Our 4th priority is retirement. Now, we're expanding our retirement offers, as has been mentioned, to ensure great outcomes for AMP super members now and into the future. Australia is fortunate to have one of the world's great superannuation systems, but there's a lot more work to do in helping our growing number of retirees take better advantage of this system. We know from AMP's research that 3 in 4 Australians over 50 find our retirement system complex. This leads to a lack of confidence in the lead up to retirement that they'll have enough to retire on, creating stress and worry. Come retirement, many Australians then underspend because they don't know if they'll have enough to live on and they want to make sure they've got enough left in their super. So this is why we're really excited to be launching Lifetime Super, a fantastic and innovative new feature. We're launching it in May. With no lock-ins and no age restrictions, Lifetime Super works in the background to give your future self the best opportunity for a more comfortable retirement. By helping increase your age pension eligibility and through other measures, Lifetime Super will give you greater peace and comfort with an option for higher income in retirement. It builds on the award-winning offer already available in My North, the My North Lifetime Solution. That was first launched in 2022, and it's already delivered some terrific outcomes for members in retirement. Edwina will take you through that in her presentation. Finally, we've integrated Lifetime Super with the digital advice services, and that will be available to all members as well as anyone joining AMP Super for the first time. So your AMP Super's in great shape with strong returns, low fees and exceptional service. With our newly launched digital advice service and upcoming Lifetime Super feature, we're focusing on ways to continue to deliver fantastic new offers for our members now and into the future. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Edwina Maloney, who runs our platform business North. Over to you, Edwina.
Thank you, Melinda. Hi, my name's Edwina Maloney and I'm the Group Executive for Platforms at AMP. Our wealth fund includes our flagship North and My North superannuation and pension platforms where members hold their retirement savings. I'm pleased to report that our platform and retirement solutions have received a number of awards over the last 12 months. Our world-class retirement income solution, My North Lifetime, was awarded the Pension Fund Design and Reform Award at the World Pension Summit in The Hague. We are also named the #1 platform for retirement by Investment Trends for the 2nd year in a row, thanks to the exceptional work of our team. Additionally, My North Lifetime received further recognition from both Chant West and SQM Research, including Chant West's Best Fund Lifetime Product Award for 2024, further solidifying its position as a leading retirement solution for members. Let's turn to our priorities for our members. The first is enhancing member experience. Product innovation is at the heart of our mission at North, and that includes bolstering our digital platform to improve efficiency and member experience. In April 2024, we introduced North Interactive. It's a fantastic new tool that can be used with your advisor to measure your investment performance and progress towards meeting your financial goals, whether you're growing your super or you're in or approaching retirement. A key feature of North Interactive is its reporting functionality. Clear and simple reporting is vital for members and their advisors to have full visibility of their investment performance and therefore help inform their investment strategy. In December 2024, we added household reporting to North Interactive, which is really beneficial for members that have multiple entities such as companies, trusts, SMSFs and individual accounts, as well as for couples and family groups, which make up about 1/3 of all of our North clients. Our second priority is expanding investment choice. Our members have a broad array of needs and therefore benefit from access to a wide range of high quality investments through our platform. We continue to work with the industry's leading investment managers to provide members with access to high quality products across asset classes and risk profiles. My North currently provides members access to over 1,000 investment options across managed funds, global equities, ETFs, and tailored managed portfolio solutions. Strengthening this range is key for empowering our members to work with their advisor to design, build, and manage a portfolio which suits their specific investment needs. Our third priority is improving our sustainability footprint. North was one of the first wrap platforms to offer sustainable managed portfolios in Australia, and we're committed to giving our members both choice and optionality while accessing sustainable returns over the long term. This year, we're pleased to make several enhancements to our My North sustainable managed portfolios, lifting our sustainability footprint and delivering greater diversification benefits in line with our ESG commitments. We made those changes to the range in response to growing demand for ESG solutions and recognition from advisors of the evolving preferences of our members. Turning to our next priority, which is ensuring North remains highly competitive on fees. We know keeping your fees low is important, and North continues to remain one of the most price competitive platforms in the market. In addition to a stronger alignment of the portfolios with sustainability objectives, our enhancements ensured that management fees are now lower for all options, meaning lower fees for our members. This is just another example of how we're continuing to put our members first. Importantly, one of our key priorities is also making sure we deliver great retirement outcomes for our members. We know one of the most common challenges that older Australians face when heading into retirement is the fear of running out, with the majority wishing they'd started planning for retirement much earlier. In fact, our financial wellness research showed Australians approaching retirement have the highest levels of stress of any age group surveyed. Here's Ben Hillier, our Director of Retirement, with some more information about how you can improve your financial wellness to get ahead in retirement.
Hi, I'm Ben Hillier. Today I'm going to look at how we can help lift your financial wellness and get you super close to your super. At AMP, we're passionate about getting more Australians to build their financial confidence, and that starts with helping you meaningfully engage to get the most out of your super, well before you're thinking about retiring. Improving your financial wellness is key, and that means building your knowledge around super, as well as getting timely expert advice and assistance that can make a meaningful difference for you at all life stages. According to AMP's latest financial wellness report, financial stress levels in Australia are at their highest point in 10 years. Only 1 in 3 working Australians are financially secure, down from half of working Australians in 2020. After a short period of relief between the ages of 51 and 54, stress levels lift sharply. In fact, Australians approaching retirement age have the highest levels of stress of any age group, with almost 2 in 5 being moderately to severely stressed. For many Australians, this fear is heightened when the rising cost of living eats away at your retirement savings. With a focus on paying the bills and keeping their heads above water, more Australians are understandably thinking less about their longer-term financial goals, let alone thinking about engaging with their super. The wonderful thing about Australia's compulsory superannuation system is with Australia's high employment levels, most are continuing to automatically build their retirement nest eggs. But there is an opportunity for more Australians to engage with their super earlier to increase their financial confidence and peace of mind about retirement. At AMP, we offer our members digital tools as well as simple advice available at no extra cost. Our AMP Super Coaches can help you get reliable information and support no matter what life stage you're in. We also offer a retirement health check with dedicated financial wellbeing support available for customers at no extra cost. Services like this can help more Australians optimise their super, gain valuable insight into the magic of compound interest and how just a little extra contributed now can multiply in value over the long term. We also have helpful resources available online like our Insights Hub, as well as our budget planner and expense calculator that can provide you with a clear view of your spending patterns. We encourage all our members to get in touch and speak with one of our friendly experts today.
Thanks, Ben. As Ben touched on, our research shows more Australians are bottling up their financial worries, and that's having an impact on their mental well-being. Helping Australians get timely financial advice and engage with their super earlier is so important to increase their financial confidence and peace of mind about retirement. At North, helping our members retire with greater financial confidence has been a major focus of our team. Advisors play such a critical role in empowering our members to achieve their financial goals and improve retirement outcomes at any life stage, whether you're just starting out in your journey or looking to make that important transition into retirement. Through North, members can access solutions such as the My North Guarantees, which help you protect your savings from market downturns, or our award-winning suite of My North lifetime accounts. With the certainty of a higher income for life, My North Lifetime is an innovative retirement income solution. It combines the flexibility of an account-based pension with the lifetime cash flow features of an annuity. It's been designed to work seamlessly with other income sources like an account-based pension and the age pension, helping advisors and their customers begin planning for retirement earlier. Pleasingly, My North Lifetime is seeing great traction with advisors and members across Australia. This year alone, over 1,500 members have taken up My North Lifetime. On average, member retirement outcomes have increased by more than 50% on My North Lifetime, driven by higher age pension entitlements and the confidence to withdraw more from their account-based pensions. You can find out more information about My North Lifetime, including the latest product updates, on North Online. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Edwina. Thank you for that overview of My North. Having now heard from AMP's leaders, I would like to summarise our most important areas of focus for your funds in the coming year. And number one is to continue to deliver sustainable returns, driving strong investment outcomes for you and ensuring our performance continues to be sustainable over the long term. The second is member servicing and experience. Continue to improve servicing, product and insurance outcomes, such as enhancing our focus on data and digital, as well as lifting member engagement and outcomes through services like digital advice and our upcoming Lifetime Super feature that you've heard about today. And the third area is leading risk culture. Continue to have that strong and effective governance with regulatory oversight frameworks in place, in addition to protecting our members against cybercrime. And the fourth area is the scale, driving sustainable benefits and improvements through growth and technology innovation. That means growing our funds in a measured and targeted way that continues to deliver strongly against peers and industry benchmarks. We look forward to providing an update on our progress and these priorities at our next annual members meeting. But before handing back to Bryony to commence the Q&A part of the meeting, I would also like to acknowledge and say thank you to the staff within AMP Superannuation, along with our Superannuation Trustee Office team and fellow directors. Thank you, Bryony.
Well, thank you, Tony. Now to the part of the meeting where Tony, Anna, Shane, Melinda and Edwina will address your questions. A reminder that if you wish to ask a question, you can use the Q&A function, which you'll find if you navigate to the bottom of the webcast panel. To our first question, which is from Kasunya. The question is, in fact, before I hand over, Kasunya is actually from our AMP Super Fund. And they ask, what are you doing to keep fees low for our super fund? And the second part of the question is, what are you doing to ensure our money stays safe from cyber attacks and fraudulent transactions? Tony, I think that's one. I'll hand to you.
Thanks, Bryony, and thanks, Ksenia. They are two very important areas for our members. We know that. In terms of the fees, and we've received quite a few questions on that pre-meeting and during the course of this meeting, we've simplified our business. We've been doing that now since 2018, and that's allowed a significant reduction in our fees. We've been able to deliver over 250 million in annualised benefits to be passed on to members over those recent years. And for us, we continue to do that in conjunction with delivering the strong investment returns that in combination really help members' benefit outcomes. I think the other thing though is what we haven't touched on today explicitly is some of the initiatives that we're bringing in, some of the innovations that we're bringing in, many of those come at no extra cost to members. So we're very pleased from the point of view of the outcomes that they bring, the extra services they bring, and the ability for members to make better retirement decisions as part of it. Again, adding to better outcomes for our members. On to the second part of your question in terms of cyber. As we all know and we read in the press, this is just a constantly emerging area of threat and challenge. And for us, certainly in our roles as trustee and the team that support us, we work very closely with the technology team at AMP. We sometimes have external reviews that test and challenge the systems that we have in place. So it is a major area of focus for us to make sure that we're keeping pace with any emerging risks there. Our team within AMP work closely with the Australian Cyber Security Centre, threat intelligence organisations to collect information and be able to respond to threats. And our systems are actually monitored 24/7. But it's also prompted your question. Your question prompts the great opportunity to remind all members to be vigilant yourselves. Anything that's unusual that you don't think is quite right, pause, take a breath, check, and really contact us if you've got any doubts. Particularly if you see something that has some pressing need or urgency that's connected with it. That's often how external parties will try and lure people into making mistakes in terms of providing access to their secured information. But thank you for your question.
Thanks, Tony. It's a great reminder for all of us to remain vigilant. So our next question comes from Jason, and Jason is also a member of the AMP Super Fund. And they ask, what is the fund doing to ensure best in industry returns, and how do we compare on fees? Now, Melinda, I think that's one. I'll hand to you.
Sure. Hi, Jason. Thanks for the question. Look, Anna ran through all of the different ways that she and her team are focused on generating strong long-term investment returns for you. But that's why we're particularly pleased, I guess, to see such strong results come through in 2024. And Anna's slides before had the returns to 30 June. But I might, and she mentioned some of the returns to December, which were stronger again. But I just thought I've got a slide here I can bring up, which has our returns through to December. And as you'll see there, the 70s, 80s and 90s funds, which are our largest cohorts, returned over 15%, as was previously mentioned by Anna, and strong returns as well in our 60s and 50s funds, which start to, under that life stages curve you saw before, start to look to protect members' capital a little more by having less exposure to risky investments, so a bit of a smoother ride, but slightly lower returns. But all of those returns were very strong compared to industry peers, and we're very proud of those returns. They were amongst the leading returns in the country last year. In terms of then what do we do to continue to make sure that we compare well to peers, we do monitor that really closely. So we're looking at what peers are returning and what they're doing. Also, that's part of our strength is the quality of the team we have here. So I'm really focused on making sure we have the best investment professionals in the team and that we're able to retain those people and keep them happy to be working for Anna and staying in that team. And then lastly, we work really closely with Tony and his board, and they hold us accountable for the strategy and to make sure we've got everything in place to allow us to continue to deliver those strong returns. In terms of fees, look, Tony's already mentioned we've made a lot of strides in reducing our fees, and I just thought it'd be good to put up here again just some of those numbers from before, really showing that if you look at, this is a simple average of our investment fees plus our admin fees, and this is for someone with a $50,000 balance, and you can actually see that our fees are lower than the average of other super funds fees, whether they be industry funds or all funds averaged. So at $444 per annum, that is a really competitive fee rate. And it's a similar story if you had a $100,000 balance as well, comparing those fees. So we do look at it at different balance levels. And look, we're committed to maintaining that competitive position on both our fees and our performance, and we focus a lot of time and effort on doing that. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Melinda, and it's a great little comparison. Makes it very easy for our members to see just how competitive the AMP Super Fund is. Look, our next question is a live question from Margaret, and it seems that actually it's more of a comment than a question. And Margaret says to us, 175 years in the industry, what an incredible milestone. Congratulations. Thank you, Margaret, for putting that forward. We're really proud of the history of AMP, and I like to think of it as 175 years of looking forward. We're very much about innovating and making sure we're doing the best possible thing in providing you with a good fund that will set you up for success in retirement. So thanks for the comment. We will go on to our next question, which is from Susanna. And Susanna is also a member of the AMP Super Fund, and they ask, what strategies are being implemented to increase the returns on my super? And what types of assets or portfolios are AMP investing in? Now, Anna Shelley, that sounds like one for you.
Thanks, Bryony. So firstly, just to emphasise, as Shane mentioned in his speech earlier, that we do always try and look through that short-term volatility and try and find investments where we can maximise the long-term returns for our members. But in terms of what we're actually doing at the moment, two key areas of focus for us are firstly research and investment in AI or artificial intelligence, and then secondly those unlisted infrastructure assets, so increasing our exposure there. Within that space in unlisted infrastructure, we're particularly looking at assets that support the energy transition, for example, but also logistics, transport assets, digital assets, and then things like water and waste as well. There's lots of opportunity in that space, and we think it'll really enhance your returns going forward.
Thanks, Anna. Our next question is from Janelle. Janelle's also a member of the AMP Super Fund, and Janelle asks, Are you satisfied with the oversight of all service providers used by the trustee? And secondly, why did you switch over to TAL? Now, I think that's a question that could probably be handled by both Tony and Melinda, so I'll invite you, Tony, to comment first.
Thanks, Bryony. Thanks, Janelle, for that question. I'll probably mainly tackle the first part of that. As trustee, that's a lot of our role is about overseeing those service providers. And of course, the situation we have here for your fund is the internal service provider, which is the AMP business, which Melinda heads up and reports to us on. But then there are externals, like you mentioned, TAL is one, our custodian is another. And so we have a system of delegated supervision. That means that Melinda and Anna are looking over those external providers and then reporting up to the trustee to make sure that we get the right reporting and the right oversight ability that we need and ask for to be able to look through into those externally operating providers like BNP and TAL. In terms of the internal, certainly we, and might need to ask Melinda this question, but we certainly spend a lot of time overseeing them and asking questions of their progress, how they're delivering to our business plan. The other important thing I think to draw out here is the fact that they are internal, we believe is a huge advantage in terms of our ability to be nimble when servicing members. At each trustee meeting, we get presented with sometimes a good story, sometimes a bad story about a member servicing issue. We all learn from that, we dive into that. That's something that means we can quickly change direction if we need to, as opposed to perhaps a externally based administrator who is looking after a number of different clients all at the same time. Our administrators are only looking after one client, the AMP Super Fund, or a very different team looking after the platform. So it's fairly rigorous, or it's very rigorous, and we also test how things are comparing to the market from time to time as well in terms of servicing. But in terms of TAL, I might hand over to Melinda for the answer to your question on TAL. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And yeah, look, we do, as Tony mentioned, have a lot of capability in-house within AMP. So that's why when we do go externally for specialist services, and insurance is one of the biggest ones we go externally for, it's really important for us to find the right partner that's going to do an excellent job for you. Now, why did we change? We were receiving pretty consistent feedback from our members about their insurance. So we decided to test the market to see if we could get a better deal for you, both in terms of service and also premiums. So we ran a full tender, and at the end of that process, TAL was selected. So as I mentioned in my talk earlier, that has led to a range of new services, including some digital services we're launching for you at the moment. And also, on average, members received around a third reduction in their premiums. So it was quite a significant cost saving, which means there's more in your super account versus being paid out in insurance premiums. We're now rolling out a range of other services. We're getting pretty good feedback so far from members in terms of the servicing from the combination of our team and the TAL team. I think we're working quite productively together. So yeah, we're really happy with how it's going so far.
Great, thanks Melinda. Our next question comes from David, and David's also a member of the AMP Super Fund, and they ask, how is the trustee ensuring the fund is sustainable long term? And what is the strategy to ensure the growth of membership, particularly in the corporate membership space? Tony, I might invite you to comment on that.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Size is often a reasonable proxy to sustainability, not always, but certainly the size of your questions relating to the super fund, the AMP Super Fund, it's certainly very sizable, so there are economies of scales. And we've been working at extracting those economies of scale over the last few years with that simplification program that we've mentioned through today's presentation, and I touched on in the first question. That gives us a lot of operating efficiency and ability to, as we said earlier, to maintain a level of costs that is, in benchmarking terms, very well placed. But what's important for the future is the continued investment returns, that's very important to a member's retirement outcome. The servicing enhancements and continuing to deliver contemporary state-of-the-art type servicing like the digital advice. That digital advice is so important to the ability to touch many members much more efficiently and much more effectively, and then deliver outcomes that are going to be satisfactory to them rather than them needing to make a personal appointment, for example. And the fees, again, managing those fees, maintaining those is very important. So we see that those three pillars very critical to continue to grow, to retain members, and to add to our membership as an attractive fund. And was there another part of the question? No.
No, I think the only thing we might add is that we're obviously looking at the next stage is what we're introducing to the fund. So we're expanding on the My North. Tony?
Yes, sorry, there was another part. So as we've talked about in the presentation, we're looking very smartly into that retirement space. The My North retirement product, as Ben alluded to before in the video, has had a wonderful effect on the members that have taken it up. And we're looking to deliver something very similar into the AMP Super Fund. Continue to enhance our digital offering is another add-on to that as well.
Yeah, I think a really important innovation to introduce the AMP Super Fund to ensure that we are growing sustainably. So our next question comes from Adam, and Adam's part of the Wealth Fund, and he's asked, how has My North Super Fund progressed compared to other super funds? Edwina, I think that's one for you.
Thank you, Adam. Look, as we touched on in the presentation, we're really proud that we've, for the second year in a row, received the #1 spot as the #1 retirement platform in the market by an independent research firm, Investment Trends. So, we're really proud of that award. If your question, and again, without understanding the context for your question, but if your question relates to how has the fund, your super fund, performed relative to other funds, that will really depend on your individual circumstances. As you know, your advisor would have constructed a portfolio with you, and so they'll have the best vantage of how that portfolio they've constructed with you compares to the performance of another super fund. So you should go and have a chat to them about that investment performance outcome and whether it meets your longer term needs and risk profile. But if your question is more about how we've progressed in terms of our competitiveness relative to the market, I'm really proud to say that North certainly holds its head up as one of the most competitive super and retirement platforms in the market. A lot of that has to do with us listening to both our members and advisors in terms of what they want in terms of investment choice. You heard in my presentation, we've been really carefully and curating a very broad but quality menu of investment options. We've also invested a lot in our managed portfolio offer, which enables us to tailor managed portfolios or an investment portfolio for your advisor to use relating to your investment circumstances. And that's one of the fastest growing sort of managed portfolio offers in the market. An example is we heard from advisors and members they wanted a low-cost managed portfolio option, and we added a low-cost diversified index option to that range this year. And the final area that we've been really focused on investing in outside of the digital improvements that I touched on in the presentation was obviously My North Lifetime. You've heard a lot about it today. I don't need to go into it again, but we're certainly very proud that we are seeing about a 50% increase in income for retirees, and many are seeing an average boost of $8,000 a year in retirement. That's significant. That's really significant for someone in retirement. So that's something we're really proud of. If you want to hear more about that, we'd encourage you to go and talk to your advisor.
Lovely, thanks Edwina. Our next question comes from Jung Lip, and they're from the Wealth Fund also. They ask, how will our fund be impacted by the economic news coming out of China? And how will it be impacted by the changing governments in the US? Shane, I think that's one for you.
Thanks, Bridie, and thanks, Young Lip. That is a critical question in all of this. China and the US together have a huge impact on Australia and the global economy. They're the world's biggest in the case of the US and second biggest economy. And that, of course, impacts investment markets, which AMP funds naturally invest in. So there will be an impact from both of those. The situation in China has been around for a while. There's been a slowdown in growth there. The Chinese authorities have responded to that with some measures to support growth. They probably still need to do more. I get the impression they're holding back a little bit, waiting to see how hard Donald Trump will go with the tariffs. But I do expect more stimulus to come out of China, more measures to help consumer spending in particular in that economy, which I think is still lagging, and that's probably the key area where China needs to focus on in the years ahead, and I think they probably will. I should also point out, though, that the news is not all bad out of China. Their economy is still growing. It is still fairly solid growth in the great scheme of things. And recently we've seen a lessening in the pace of decline in property prices, which suggests that the property downturn might be starting to ease. I think the bigger threat to all of us comes from Donald Trump and the tariffs. We've already seen shares have been impacted in the last few days, down 4% or so. As a result of his tariffs, that does impact our funds because we invest in shares. And as I mentioned in my presentation, this could go further. What I would say, though, is that we monitor these things quite closely to try and avoid big drawdowns, but you can never entirely rule that out. It's the nature of long-term investing that you're going to get short-term setbacks every so often. And we've seen that in the past, that you go through these periods of volatility, but the key is to focus on the longer term. If you try and get, I noticed over the last couple of years at various points in time, people get very, very negative about things, and then of course it turns out okay. So that's why we don't want to rush from one side of the boat to the other. We've got to take a cautious approach to all of this, but we are very conscious of the threat posed by what is coming out of the US, given the change of government there.
Thanks, Shane. Our next question comes from Paul. Paul's also a member of the AMP Super Fund, and he asks, does AMP still invest in fossil fuel resources, and what green options are available? Anna, that's one for you.
Thanks, Bryony, and thanks, Paul. So we don't exclude fossil fuel investments. We still invest in them. What we choose to do broadly across the AMP Super Fund and then also across North is to engage with companies. And so what we're trying to do is be an active owner, and we vote on climate-related resolutions at the companies in which we invest. And then we also, with our investment managers and partners, make sure that we have important discussions with those company boards on your behalf. And we talk about things like coal exposure, coal operations, and then the company's transition planning and how they plan to become more sustainable in the future. We do as well have a significant engagement with BHP, which is one of the largest companies in Australia. But in terms of green options, so Paul, we do offer sustainable options on both the AMP Super menu and the North platform, and they do exclude fossil fuels from certain asset classes. So if you feel strongly about the issue, then we'd suggest that you speak to your advisor. You can also speak to the intra-fund advice team. You can go on our website or the app and get some more information about those options. Thanks, Bryony.
Thanks, Anna. So our next question comes from Simon. Simon's a member of the AMP Super Fund, and he asks, what resources does AMP provide to help inform and educate members about their super fund and super funds in general? Now, Melinda, that sounds like you.
Sure, happy to answer that for you, Simon. Look, providing easy access to help and advice, as I mentioned in my speech earlier, it's one of the things we're really focused on here. I outlined the new digital advice service. We've got the retirement health check available now, but there's going to be a series of additional journeys, as we're calling them, added to that over the next few months. So I think that's a really key way that people can quickly, 24/7, get access to help and support. We also have the intra-fund advice team that actually stand behind that. So any member can book an appointment with them and ask their questions and help work out how to tailor and sort of optimise their superannuation. And then we have various other servicing teams. We've got our call centre teams. We've got education teams for our big corporate clients that come out to the workplace and help them. We've got a lot of information that comes out regularly in newsletters. We've got webinars that you can book into on particular topics. So there's lots of different ways. You might have noticed we've just overhauled the AMP website. So that's probably now much easier for you to be able to find information and help and links to all the things I've been talking about. And there'll be some links at the end of the session as well.
Lovely, thank you, Melinda. Our next question comes from Richard, and Richard's a member of the Wealth Fund. And Richard asks, can you tell me more about the North Guarantee and what capital protection it offers me? Edwina, I'll pass that to you.
Thank you, and thanks for the question, Richard. As I touched on my presentation, the guarantee funds are a big focus of ours, and something when we launched were quite innovative at that time. Look, what they're doing is they're providing capital protection, so to provide you with downside protection if markets fall. And what that does is effectively protects your initial capital balance or your initial investment. It does, interestingly, also have a growth lock-in feature, which means that every year annually on an anniversary date, you can choose to lock in any upside or investment return into that protected balance. So we think that's a fantastic feature for members. So for those who are getting close to retirement or at retirement, it's a really useful investment strategy to help protect from falling markets, which can obviously protect your overall balance and your returns. We're continuing to evolve that range. We did launch another version of it last year, 30 August last year. And we are continuing to look at new options and new features and functionality around that range. We would encourage you, though, they're not a fun range for everyone. We would encourage you to speak to your financial advisor to see if they're suitable for you based on a number of factors, obviously, including your risk appetite and investment objectives. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Edwina. Now, our next question is a live question. It comes from Jenny, who's a member of the Wealth Fund. And Jenny asks, I read recently that AMP has become the first super fund to invest in crypto. What will this look like to us? Will it be integrated into most investment options, or will it be a standalone option we can add to our mix? Anna, I'll invite you to comment on that.
Thank you, Jenny, and noting that one's from the Wealth Fund as well. So I talked previously about how we have incorporated a very small allocation, so about 0.05%, very tightly risk-controlled allocation across most of our diversified investment options. So as it relates to the AMP Super Fund, that's across many of the large diversified options like the My Super 1970s as an example. And then as it relates to the Wealth Fund, it applies, for example, to the North Professional Series, which we at AMP manage. We have received a lot of questions about digital currencies over the course of the year. We don't currently offer it as a standalone option. However, there are some options that are crypto or digital asset related on the North platform, and I would encourage you to have a look for those if you are interested, and definitely speak to your advisor. At the current point in time, we would not recommend that anyone invest 100% of their super in a digital asset investment option. It's simply too volatile and too uncertain to do that, and so the example that we have taken by taking a very small proportion of the diversified super investment options and allocating that to Bitcoin futures, we think that's a good example, perhaps to model. So if you are interested, do bear that in mind and seek advice from your advisor.
Thanks, Anna, and I'm going to hold you there for a little bit longer because our next question is another live question from Reng Hangard, who's a member of our AMP Super Fund. And they ask, what is the AMP's market outlook for the upcoming year and what investment segments are being considered? Secondly, what impact due to cuts in interest rates and potential political changes do you foresee? So Anna, I might invite you to comment on the first part and then perhaps we'll pass to Shane for the second part.
Sure. I guess one of the big positions that we've talked about throughout the session today has been about that overweight to the US economy, the US equity market. We still remain quite positive on US shares, but we are watching the geopolitical environment, in particular quite closely. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on. So that's one of the key parts of our investment outlook, I guess. We have made some changes. We were overweight emerging markets. We've recently reduced that back to neutral. We think there are some risks there with some of the deglobalisation factors that Shane talked about earlier. If I think about fixed income, we're quite positive on Australian government bonds relative to US bonds. And in the credit space, we're keeping a watchful eye on the high yield market because the credit spreads there, or how much extra you get paid for the extra risks that you're taking on, are really quite tight. So, and I talked previously about focus on unlisted infrastructure, for example. Shane, anything to add there?
Thanks, Ada. Just on interest rates, there's a question there about what impact that would have. Generally speaking, when interest rates go up, it's bad news for shares because it makes share markets look more expensive. It puts pressure on companies. Higher interest rates mean people spend less. So when interest rates are coming down, it can tend to have a positive impact on share markets. Unless, of course, we've slid into a recession, it may take longer for that impact to show up. But our base case is not a recession, so we think overall it should be a positive thing. And we've seen a bit of that over the last year. Rates came down, it boosted share markets, so that provides a bit of an offset to the uncertainty coming politically. On the US, we've probably already talked about that. That is going to cause volatility. In Australia, we have an election coming up. Historically in Australia, elections don't have a big impact on markets because the policy differences between the two sides aren't that radical. I know we do get excited about it, but in the great scheme of things, it's not that big a change. But the other thing to note about elections is they can cause a little bit of uncertainty in the markets in the run-up to them, but once they're out of the way, they tend to sort of rise. Share markets tend to rise once the election is over with. Not always, but that tends to be the tendency. But overall, I don't see a huge impact from the Australian election on the Australian share market.
Thanks, Shane. And I'm conscious of time and letting our members get back to the day. So this will be our final question, and it comes from Grant, who's a member of the AMP Super Fund. And Grant comments, investing ethically helps deliver a better, safer world for all, including fund members. What is AMP Super doing to look more broadly at what it means to look after their members? I'm actually going to invite Melinda first to comment, and then perhaps Tony, you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. And look, we've talked a lot today about the things we've been doing to improve service and offerings to members and really help people be able to deal with some of the greatest financial worries people might have about running out of money in retirement. The really practical things, I think, just to highlight from all the different services we've talked about today is if you want to know how on track you are, jump onto the retirement health check on the new digital advice service, and that can really give you, first of all, an idea of where you stand. Am I on track or not? It gives you a score. And then you can click on a button called Fix It. How do I fix it? And it gives you tips or advice on what to do to actually change it. And of course, you can always ring our advisors and book in to talk to them as well. So look, that's just an example of a really practical measure. And then the other one is the upcoming lifetime service that we're about to launch. There'll be a lot more information coming out about this through April, and it launches in May. But it means all existing members and new members joining will be able to have a service which actually materially changes the eventual retirement income you're going to be able to get when you retire, even if that might be several decades in the future. And again, that'll be built into this retirement health check when it's launched. So you'll be able to see, am I on track? Would I be more on track with Lifetime Super helping me out? So the whole idea of this is it really helps people be able to see where they stand and have confidence then that there are things, practical things that they can do to really shift their position. Tony.
Thanks, Grant. Your question, particularly the part around ethical investing, it does raise one of the challenges that the current superannuation system it faces and is grappling with, and trustees such as ourselves are often grappling with in terms of the way it's designed. We need to give primacy to delivering investment decisions that provide an outcome to members financially, and that's enshrined in the law. So decisions that involve the E being ethical, social or governance related concerns can be infused into our decision making, but it really needs to be primacy on the outcome from an investment point of view. Where we can, we certainly, and as Anna talked to earlier, we look to do that. In terms of the risks that an investment faces, we are obligated, it's good investment practice to consider the E, the S and the G. Are there any warning signs there that in a particular company or in a particular geography that might be presented around each of those three? I mean, Shane's talked a bit about geopolitical risks, for example, and some of the flow-on effect into emerging markets. They're the things we must consider. But we also try and consider the opportunities that might be presented. The changing landscape from an environmental and an energy point of view, certainly the trustee has said to Anna and her team, they're welcome to look for opportunities, and we encourage them to look for opportunities that might be good investment decisions around that. So thanks for your question. I'll hand back now to Bryony to wrap up proceedings for today. Thank you.
So thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Tony. And that does conclude the Q&A part of our meeting. If we haven't had time to address your question, we'll be publishing responses on our website, together with a recording of today's meeting within the next 30 days. To make it easy for you to access answers, we'll be grouping your questions into related themes. These will be available on AMP's new website via the link shown on screen at amp.com.au/AMM. As I mentioned earlier, if your question is of a personal nature, one of our member engagement team will be in touch with you directly. Importantly, to get the full benefit of your AMP Super account, it's really important you activate your our My AMP portal and or the app if you prefer to do things on your phone. It really is the best way to get super close to your super, and some of our new services like digital advice are only available through My AMP. You can also access a range of helpful information on AMP's Insights Hub, which are accessible via your desktop or via your device using, again, our My AMP app. Look, it is a really great app and I do actually use it every day, and so I do encourage you to get online and check out our articles and insights on super, retirement and wealth issues. We also publish webinars on a range of financial matters. Now, we would really appreciate your feedback on the event. So if you do have your phone handy, please scan the QR code that you see on screen now. You'll also see on screen information about how you can access some of the help and resources we've talked about today, including our premium offering, My North Lifetime, available through your advisor, as well as our newly launched solutions like our digital advice offer for members. Finally, you can organise to speak to our member engagement team by using your phone. So again, just grab your phone and scan the QR code that you can see on screen now. Or please get in touch with your financial advisor for further assistance. That does bring us to a close for 2025, and on behalf of Tony, Anna, Shane, Melinda and Edwina, thank you very much for joining and for your continued support of AMP.